In this video, we are going to look at how to use the ListView and ListTile to display a list of items by reading a JSON or XML file in Flutter application. This is the second video that I am creating. In the previous video, we have looked at how to get a static data, basically where the text is written within the code. But instead of writing the text or the whatever you want to display here, the messages within the code, let us try to read it from an external file, which is pretty common. Especially, for example, think about your inbox in your email messages. Those inbox basically have the data coming from somewhere else, from the servers. And the same thing applies to other applications as well, where you are viewing all the list of messages or notifications, etc. So for this, we are going to learn and look at two very important concepts. The first one is called asynchronous or async. What asynchronous means, that when you are trying to load the data from external file, the system should not freeze or should not block from running the rest of the app, screen development, design, etc., while the data is being loaded in the background. So that is the most important aspect, and it is part of the UI design principles. So we will be looking at how to implement the asynchronous concept. And the next one is, if you remember in the previous videos, we have covered a lot about stateless and stateful widgets. When we are trying to create stateless widget, it doesn't have any state. That's why we straight away go to build. However, in the stateful widgets, we know the difference between stateless and stateful. In the stateless widget, we assume that the UI doesn't change. That's why we basically, stateless widgets are pretty much useful, especially for speed, for performance. It will really help. But however, if you have the data or the UI, that will change over time, because in our case we are basically pulling the data from different external file. Of course, the data will change. That's why we have to use stateful widget in this scenario to read the data from an external file. We are going to use the JSON, which is JavaScript object notation file. We can also read the data from XML file and from other files, but JSON is the pretty common file that you will see most of the applications try to implement, because JSON files are something that different systems written in different programming background, different platforms, they can share the data through JSON files. So when we are talking about stateful widget, it has three different states. One is the create state, the second is the initialization state, and the third one is the set state. Create state, it is something that you basically create an instance, and this is something that must be implemented pretty much every time, especially with the stateful widget is set. The second one is called initialization state. This is used only once, and in our case, this is basically the location where we will be initializing that, hey, go and get the data. And the third one is the set state. It is the basically one of the states where, if for instance the UI design has changed, maybe animation or some changes. For example, when the user is clicking, you want to display some kind of animation or something, or any kind of UI changes are done, then it alerts and says that go and rebuild the UI. So that's basically the main purpose of set state. So looking into these concepts, let us jump to the development. So I'm going to open up the Visual Studio Code. I'm going to create a view command palette, going to create a new project in Flutter, and that's application. I'm happy here in this location, app demo. I'm basically selecting this folder as my location, and I'm going to give it a nice name. This time, because we are reading the data from a JSON file, so we can say, like, for example, list JSON, for example, list_JSON. So we are going to display from the JSON file. So I'm going to click enter. Now the system is setting up the Flutter application for us with the default code. So while it is loading, let's wait for a few seconds. Now as you can see that the system has pretty much set up with the main .dot file having the default code. So what we are going to do is we're going to delete this default code and we are going to use the standard code that we have already discussed in one of our previous video. Basically this standard code is pretty much doing is doing nothing here except that it has imported the material package, and then you are trying to run, and then we are run this particular class my app, and that my app you have a constructor and you have a widget where we are going to design. But within the design we are saying home equals is basically null, which means it's going to have an empty it's an empty app. We can give it a nice name here because we are creating this Flutter app to display the JSON file. So my JSON file data app, for example. I'm going to save this one. I'm going to run this one just to ensure it is working properly. I'm going to specify Microsoft Edge as my output. You can use emulator, any emulator, no problem. So I'm going to put this screen on my left and let it load. We are trying to display something like this. So it's loading, it's launching now, launching main.dot file on Edge. Just bear for a second. It is launching, and that's the pretty much the code that we have. That's the pretty much empty code. It's an empty app. There you go. It has loaded. Now once it has loaded, I'm going to basically put it here on my right side just to show what it looks like. So that's an empty app which has basically got a title and the home is null. So that title, my JSON file data, you should see on the tab on the very top. You see here it is now still loading. So I think there you go, my JSON file data app. That's the name we gave for this app, and that is basically the widget tree. It has pretty much empty, it's just the material app and design, and we have got null here. Now let's go ahead and try to implement how to read the data from a JSON file. For that, the first thing what we are going to do is we click anywhere here. Basically we need to create a folder at the root directory in this app. So I'm going to click on the new folder, and I'm going to call it as assets, ASSETS, assets. And in the assets we can have a file, so we can call, like for example, messages or message underscore data dot JSON file, because we are trying to implement here some kind of messages. So let's create message underscore data dot JSON file. Now here this is a JSON file, so if you can it's just one of the different type of file format which holds the JSON data. It's pretty straightforward. It's like an array, it looks like that. And then you can have a flower brackets. Within the flower brackets you can give the, for example, you can specify the title and the subtitle. For example, we can specify the title as origin energy, and we can specify the comma, say another item as subtitle, because that's basically pretty much what we wanted to display. So subtitle, which is say for example hi. So actually I have some, you can basically write, and you can basically do the same thing, like you can basically comma and you can write another message, bunch of messages. So I have already got this one, so I'm going to copy paste here, Control Alt Control V. Let me show you what I have got here. Basically I have got 3 messages here in this JSON file. The first message I have deliberately wrote it in a very long paragraph for a reason, so that we can test how we can display only 2 lines in our list tile. So I got basically the first one is origin energy. Hi Sarah, this is your reminder on electricity bills of whatever amount, 1 to 3 or whatever you want to say, dollars or something. Please ensure to pay, etc, etc. You can email blah 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 blah. You can email us if you have any difficulty in paying your bills, so that we can arrange monthly payment plan. It's a very pretty long line. It's more than 2 lines when we view it in the list tile. And the same thing with the second one about weather forecast, or third message about, just like the normal messages we see in our mobile phones. So that's basically what I have got in this JSON file. So I'm going to save it now. So I have saved it. Now because we have got an external file, Now we need to do few cosmetic changes in the pubspec YAML file. So the first thing we need to do in the pubspec YAML file is we need to notify the Flutter application that there is an external file that will be part of our application. It could be an image, it could be a JSON file, it could be a text file, it could be anything. As long as you have written something, you must declare it under assets. That's the very important point here. So under the asset, as you can see here, so under the asset, I'm going to control backslash, and we don't have images, we have here now assets. So you can even right click and copy relative path. You can specify the path here, and instead of backslash you just put the forward slash. That's basically how you specify. So we are saying that this file message underscore data dot JSON file is now part of our application. That is basically what we are doing here now. Okay, so I have just saved this file. Now once you have saved this one, now this file becomes part of our application. So let's go back to our main file. Now in the main file we have specified the home as null, that's why it's empty. So what we are going to do is we are going to create another file. Say for example, instead of writing the code here, instead of writing any piece of code here, let us try to create another file. We can call it as, say for example, home page. Maybe we can create a home page. So home underscore page dot file. I believe that's something we can write. There you go, we got a home page and dot file. Now here also I'm going to write some standard code that you should use pretty much for any external class file, that as soon as you want to create a new page or new class, in other words, you must follow the same syntax that I'm showing you here, except that here instead of text you will be changing this written part. Okay, so basically what it is doing is, if you can see here, we are importing the material dot. Let me put it like this: importing the material dot, and then we are defining the class extend StatefulWidget, because we are going to display the data from an external file, JSON file. That's why we are using the stateful, and there's a constructor, and then we are basically saying create me a state. As I mentioned to you that there are 3 states. For a stateful widget has 3 states: create state, initialization state, set state. So this create state, this must be implemented for every stateful widget. This is very important, it must be implemented. So let's go back to our class, and there you go, we are creating a state, and we are calling a internal private class, which means that this underscore indicates that this is a private class that is accessible within this file, which is home underscore page dot. You can't make a call to this underscore home page state in main dot or any other files. That's basically what it is. This is part of encapsulation and best practices. So assume that we have this piece of code here. So now what we need to do is, we have quite a few things to do here. So first what we are going to do is, let me actually, because we have declared it as a home page, let's go back to the main, and here we will call it as home page. So I should have got the intelligence. I did not get the intelligence, means okay, it's running. That's why maybe I press Control Tab. There you go. When I press Control Tab, it gives me the intelligence. The reason I am looking for intelligence is, as soon as I click here, it will automatically provide me the link reference where this home page is located. For example, I just click here now. Now you can see that this link is automatically added. If you don't want to have that one, you can write it here, and you can just write here import the name of the package and the name of the project, which is flutter underscore application underscore list underscore JSON, and then slash home page. That's where this home page class is located. So that's the reference. So we need to let Flutter app know that that is the location for this particular home page class. So that's the only change we did in this standard piece of code. So we are done with the main page. So we'll just save this one now. And if I just save it, now you will see that there will be a simple text. I think it should be displayed there. But what we are trying to achieve is not that. There you go, test, which is basically the test that we have written here. If you want, even you can basically wrap it with a center and so on. But that's not the point we are trying to achieve. We are trying to achieve something like this, where we have a basically on the top tag like messages, and then we have list of messages coming from the JSON file. So for that we need to do few things. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a empty data. So basically what I'm going to do is extend state. So from here, so class underscore, that's the private. So from here I'm going to write some piece of code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list, and it's going to be a dynamic list. Why it is dynamic? Because we are getting the data from outside, which can have 3 records or which can have 100 records, it doesn't matter. And I'm going to say call it as a underscore data, which is again private, and I'm going to call it like this, something like this. So basically what it is saying is I'm creating a dynamic list to hold the data. Once I read this message underscore data.json file, get all the data and assign it to underscore data. Again, you see, just like the way we created a private class, we are creating a private variable, okay, a variable called data underscore data. So this is very important. Now after this, what we are going to do is we are going to do the second stage, which is basically we have already created state. Now we are going to do the setState, initialization. So after create state, we are going to do the initialization state. As I said, for the stateful widget, which means that the data changes and the UI changes on the go at runtime. So we created the state. Now we are going to use the initialization. But please do note that this initialization state, it's called exactly once, and that's where we will be basically assigning the data. Well, you know how to get the data. So let's try to do the set state, initialization state, sorry. So at override, just like the same way, look at here. Basically here what we did, at override we assigned the create state. Now we are doing the initialization state. Now here void initialization state. So basically what we are saying is in this code we can call it here underscore load JSON data, and we will need to create that function. Just bear with me for a second. So this is basically where we are going to make a call. Now that load JSON data needs to be called here. We need to create a function called load JSON data. How do we do that? So we are going to call a function which is going to be again future. Bear with me for a second. I will explain you the code line by line. Void, and what we are going to do is underscore the name we gave, load JSON data, and this is going to be asynchronous function, and this is going to be an asynchronous function. There you go. So now that load JSON file, basically we created a function. If you want me to write some comment here, so this is a function that will perform the operation in the future, and it will not stop. So when the code is being executed line by line, this piece of code will not block from continuing and designing or painting or running the other steps, because this is a future task. That's basically what the future means. So in other words, let me explain to you here function that will perform and complete in the future. So function that will perform an operation, it could be anything, any operation that you write inside that code in the future, okay, in the future. And as I said, asynchronous means it will work in the background, it will run in the background. Now that's basically here what we need to do in this function is we need to read the data from that JSON file. So how do you read the data from that JSON file? Now before I go into that one, there is also one more best practices. Whenever you are trying to load the data under initialization state, it is a good practice. It's not mandatory, but it's a good practice to actually have this super initialization called at least once. So super dot initialization state. This is something that that is recommended, but it's not mandatory. It's just something it calls the super class initialization method as part of best practices, nothing else. So what we are trying to do is in the initialization state, we are loading the JSON data. In other words, we are calling this function. What is that function? Load JSON data. And here we need to write the code in order to load the data from the message underscore data JSON file. So how do you do that? Let's learn something here, something new concept here again. What we're going to do is we will try to use the try catch exception. try catch exception, because we are using another file. Sometimes this file might have some errors. Maybe there is, for example, something like this, or there is some error in the file. If something happens, or maybe this close bracket is missing or something like that, then it is always a good idea to have a try catch error, so that when the system is trying to read, if anything goes wrong, any exception happens, at least we can display a message saying that that there is an error in loading the data, instead of just throwing some kind of error message to the end users, which might look very ugly. So for that, what we are going to do is we are going to use the try catch exception. So that's how you write try. And basically, like, for example, here try, in the try you can write say how to load the data. Let's get a final string and response. Let's write it as response, because that's basically what we are going to do. Again, we will use here some concept called await, because we are using here the asynchronous function. We will use something called root bundle. Now you might be wondering, what is this root bundle and load string? Let me explain to you this one. Now the root bundle, the very purpose of root bundle is this will help us to access the files from different locations in the root, from the root, which is the project. Okay, if you just mouse over it, you can understand the root bundle from which this application was loaded. So that's the root, and from there you can basically load any data, maybe images or JSON file or any other file. So that is how you do that one. Okay, I'm just going to increase this size. So here what we are going to do is root bundle load data, and we need to specify where is the data located. And the data here, we know that that's in the assets, which we wrote here in the pub/spec YAML file. This is the location, and if you can just copy paste this location from here, or you can simply right click here, copy relative path, and you can paste it here. But please make sure the back arrow on the backspace and the forward space. So basically you need to put the arrow like this in the forward. So assets slash, and that's the message underscore data dot JSON file. Basically this is basically where we want to load the data. So that's the first step, so in the try catch exception, but we are not done yet. Now once, for example, if say for example in the try catch exception you have this data loaded, and then you might want to do the catch as well, right? If something goes wrong, we need to handle this error. So the way you do that is say for example here let's try catch exception, and in the catch exception you can specify E for exception or whatever you want to write. Exception, it's up to you, whatever you want to write. I'll just put a shortcut E, and here we need to specify, hey, if something goes wrong, what should I do? For now we will just try to do like print. This is not the best practice, but I'm just showing you here. Error occurred, error loading JSON file. And you can also specify the exception in terms of because if you want to write any kind of code inside the text like this, you need to use the $, and then you can specify E. E is for that, E is the shortcut that is holding the exception, what error we got. Okay, so now I put the semicolon, and this is basically a very simple try, a very simple catch. Now of course it's showing you the, basically it's saying that it hasn't been used anywhere. We will try to use it, and as you can see it says that don't invoke print in the production environment. We are in the development environment, it's okay. For development environment it's fine. So I'm just going to right click and format the document just to make it look better. So let us further edit the try catch, so that when the data comes back, assuming that the data has been read from the JSON file, which is message underscore data, and it has come into the response. So what we need to do is we need to store that in a list. So let me actually increase the size, appearance, zoom in to make it look better. So now what we are going to do is, okay, now that you have got the response which is holding the response by reading the JSON file, you don't need that comma, you can remove it. So what we are going to do is we are going to hold that in a list. So final, again list of that's a dynamic, because everything is basically the data is not static here, it is dynamic. So we will call it as data, and now we are going to do the decoding. Because the data is coming from a JSON file or any other XML format or any other format, we need to decode. So JSON dot decode, so decode, and this is basically what we need to do. What do we need to decode? The response, okay. Now if we do that one, now here it's saying that the JSON undefined name JSON, something is wrong, and I think we need to import one our JSON decode. So basically what we can do is we can here import data convert, convert. This basically is used for JSON. You can even write here JSON encoding and decoding, okay, decoding. So that's basically what the purpose is. So invalid URL syntax data convert dot, oh sorry, it's not data, it's dot, sorry, dot convert. Okay, so now that we got the, because it's a the programming is dot language, so dot has a convert feature. You can even mouse over it, you can see there encoding and decoding between different data representation, in our case JSON file. Okay, so that's basically what we are going to use. And now you see that JSON.decode, now the error is gone. So now that we got the data in this, being data is the variable which has got this response decoded. In other words, it is decoded. Now what we are going to do is, next we are going to set the state. That's the last part, which is basically, as you can see here, we created the state, we initialized the state, and now we are going to do the set state. Now what we need to do is we need to set the state. So set state, you can basically assign data. That's the variable that we created, an empty list of dynamic data to hold the values. So here we can say that this one is basically the data that has been received. So what we did was, this line is basically saying, hey, go and read the data from that JSON file. The second line, what it is saying is, okay, once you have read, because that is in different format, JSON format, XML format, etc., you need to decode the data and hold it in data. And then we are saying, please assign that data to this underscore data, which is a private variable, under set state. Now what is the purpose of the set state? As soon as the set state is called, it says the data has been updated, which means the UI needs rebuilding, because now we are going to rebuild. As soon as the data in the JSON file has been changed or anything happens, we need to rebuild it. Okay, that's basically the very purpose of those 3 lines of code. Okay, so now that we have done the set stage and we have also got the try catch exception, so that's the first part that we have achieved. Now let us try to build. Now let us try to do the second part, which is we got the initialization, we got the function for loading the data. These two are done. Now let us focus on the last part, which is displaying the data in the form of a list tile. Okay, so now we are not going to have this text anymore. We are going to now do the proper building to make the screen looks like this, which has basically some kind of a message title in the app bar, and then list tiles under list view, and this needs to be in the loop depending upon the number of records we received from the JSON file. So it could be 50, it could be 100, depending upon the number of records we received from a file. Okay, so let us go back here. Now what we are going to do is we are going to continue this piece of code, and here instead of text, we'll just delete that one. Now we are going to create a scaffold. As we know that scaffolding is the basic structure, put a semicolon. So if I put the semicolon here, now in the scaffold, let's first create an app bar, because it has a bar like on the top app bar. In the app bar, we can just write the title. For example, title we can say const, for example, constant text, and we can display some text saying like messages. Okay, and messages. Let me just save this part and see how it looks like. So I'm going to minimize the screen. Now you can see the screen here. So the first thing we did was have a nice app bar. There you go. We got the very top messages bar. Okay, so that's the very first thing we did. Now second, we need to display inside, which is going to be part of the body. So app bar is done. Now once the app bar is done, now we need to do the body. Now here in the body, what we are going to do is we are going to assign the data, because that's the underscore data is what is holding. However, that data, what will happen if it is empty? That is something that we need to handle. We have to make sure that the data, if it is empty, how do you handle it? If it is not empty, then how do you handle it? That's something that we need to assign. So data dot is empty, if it is empty. That's why this is a shortcut like question mark. If the data is empty, check if the data is empty, then just you can show a kind of a progress bar. In other words, we are saying that if the data is not loaded yet, try to continue showing a progress bar like a loop until the data is loaded. So we are going to say constant in the center. In the center we will display a child, okay, a child, and the child is going to be circular progress indicator. There is a beautiful circular progress indicator that tries to show a loop until the data is loaded. Circular progress indicator, that one. Okay, so that's basically what we are trying to say here, that hey, continue showing this one if the data is empty. If the data is empty, which means the data hasn't been loaded yet, then display a circular progress indicator. However, if the data is not empty, then display a list view. Okay, list view, and you need to write here in the list view dot builder. Now the code is getting, sorry, the automatic code is making it look, let me increase like this. So list view dot builder, you open close bracket, not flower bracket, so like this. Okay, excuse me, list view dot builder and enter. Now so basically what it is saying is in the body we are saying that if the data is empty, then display a progress bar. If the data is not empty, that is basically what it is. If the data is not empty, otherwise show me a list view. Now in the list view, we have to display here a few things in the list view builder. Let me show you. In the list view builder, we have some parameters that we need to show. First is the item count. There you go, item count. We need to display the count, and that we can easily get from the loaded data dot length. So that's the one which is holding the length. Now the second one is we have to show is item builder itself. Now item builder, we have to specify where is the location or the reference point where you want to build these list tiles. Then we need to use the context. Context is a reference point, and the index, the first index, the second index, or third index, sorry, index in the location, and that index is coming basically from the data. And we basically need to open close flower bracket. So there you go, open close flower bracket. So that's basically the first thing we need to do. Okay, now if I just save this one here, let us see what will happen. I mean, at the moment pretty much it's not doing anything unless it's looping, and also there is a kind of an error. There you go, the loop is going forever. You see there, it's going forever because the data is empty, we haven't done anything. That's why it's pretty much showing that for loop. You see that like circular progress loop as a child in the center. This is the piece of code that is being executed. We don't need that comma, so that's a piece of code that is being executed. But we don't want this kind of an infinite loop. So what we are going to do is we are going to write some piece of code here in the item builder. We are going to say, hey, go and get the list of items. But because we got the index, so what we can do is say, for example, here in the JSON file, this is index of 0, index of 1, index of 2. So we had to go through the loop. So that's what we need to do now. So what we are going to do is so here in the item builder, first final item equals to, so underscore data of index, whatever is the index could be 0, it will get the first record. Index of 1, it will get the second record. Index of 2, it will get another record, and so on. If you manage to get the data, then you need to display the data, right? We need to display this kind of, let's say for example, the first time index of 0, the index of 0, which is basically holding the index of 0 is origin energy. Hi Sarah, this is your electricity bill, and so on. If that's the index of 0 for the first time, then what we need to do is we need to display that data in the form of a tile. So what we can do is we can basically first create return, and here we can say return a card, return card. Now I will explain to you what is the purpose of a card. It's like basically like, if you mouse over it, you will understand. Card, it's a material design card, like like for example, it is what we are displaying here. If you can see, it is actually ListTile inside a card. So let us try to implement it first so that it will make much easier to understand. So in the card we have something called margin, like edges, in other words. So we can specify the const and edge, insets and symmetric. We can make it as symmetric. So create a symmetric and vertical as 4.0 and horizontal as 8.0. This is again, is this required? The answer is it's not mandatory. Even we can actually comment this one for a second, but I will show you how this margin is going to help us. Okay, I will show you. Maybe let's leave it as it is for now. Now let us try to create child. Now here we are going to create ListTile. Inside the ListTile, as I said, inside the ListTile we are going to have a title, and the title is going to be text of. Now please note that now we are getting the data directly from, it's a dynamic data, and the dynamic data, every time it is doing the loop. From here, item builder, it is doing the loop. So for the first time, index is 0, then data of 0, that item is assigned to item. So we can display here item of. What is the first one in the JSON data file? We have the reference as title, and the second one is subtitle. Okay, we need to go here. So first one is the title. So basically we can say title. Now again, if you want to say for example, if there is no data, then if it is empty, then you can simply put shortcut like this. If the data is empty, then just display output as no title. Okay, no title. We can even do some testing on that one. Okay, so again the second one, in the second you can say subtitle, list, because ListTile has title and few other this one as well. Let's basically, why not, we just minimize this. Let me just save it and let us see what will happen. If we just save this one, it looks like we have an error expected. Okay, semicolon. So if there is an error, even if you save, it will not get updated. You see, hot reload will not update. Let us just see what will happen now. So now it is displaying the for loop forever. It should have displayed the it should have displayed as this one. Let us see. Let us the data is loaded, I believe. Load JSON data. Let us now, it should have displayed the data, I think. Let me have a look. So load data, initialize. We did the initialization, we have done the loading, and inside the loading we are basically building. After loading we are doing the building, and in the building, let us do one thing. Let's try to continue doing this title and subtitle. Let's continue doing it. Let's see, we will be able to figure it out what's going on with that one. So the second one is basically like just like this title, which is text in the child. We can create the subtitle. Now subtitle, why there is an error here? The name parameter isn't defined. It should have been. It is part of the ListTile. We know that it is part of ListTile. So let's try to see if text of, again item of, this time we want to display subtitle, because that's the reference we have. Again you can say if double question marks, if it is empty, you can just simply say there is no subtitle. Okay, subtitle. subtitle. So I think I have forgotten the close bracket. That's the reason why it was throwing that error. Okay, so open bracket, close bracket for the title, open bracket, close bracket for the subtitle, and that's basically how it should have been written. And now what is the error? Unexpected, expected to find. Okay, so that is the child which we have created, and then after the child is the subtitle child, that's the return card, and return card child list title. I think that should be good. Let us try to see if that works. And the child list type, so card, I think that should have worked. Like, that's basically list tile, and in the list tile that is the card, and in the card basically we have this one. I think that should have been, I mean, let's see if that works. No, there is an error. Card, so return the card and list tile, and inside the list, oh yeah, sorry, see, there is a open flower bracket, but we did not close the flower bracket, and that's the reason why it was throwing the error. And that one is, I think it's up to here if I'm not mistaken. So sorry, it should be here. So that's the flower bracket if I'm not mistaken. Again, semicolon, list tile, and I think there you go, card, that's basically the, again, there you go. Sorry, let me show one more close bracket, and that's basically how it is. There you go, that's the flower bracket. Okay, that's the flower bracket, and for the card, that's the card, and that's the list for the closing for the list. This is for the card, and that flower bracket is for that one. And then this everything comes under list view. Where do we have the list view dot builder? So I think this is again not needed. I think, sorry, there is a mistake here. This is also mistake, this is also mistake. I think there you go. So now that's all looks good. Okay, as we can see that this is the small piece of code that we have written in order to loop through the JSON file. And as we saw before that, you know, the data was basically showing the circular progress indicator for loop. The reason it was showing was because we wrote the code but we did not save it. So basically what I did was I have stopped and I am going to restart again. So run without debugging. So I have stopped and I have now again I'm running it. So let us see how it looks like. So all we have got is basically a window, widget, and in that scaffolding widget we got the title, and in the body we are saying that if the data is empty, then basically, like, you know, show a circular progress bar, otherwise you just display the list view builder. Now let me put this list view builder here so it makes life easy to understand. There you go. Now as you can see, it is loading. Let's see what will happen. So there you go, it is loading. So now I hope that it should show us the list of all the list of tiles in a loop, because that's basically what we are doing here. In the list of tiles we are just showing the title and the subtitle. So it is loading, and let's wait. There you go, that's good. So we got the first one, the list tile, the second tile, and third tile. But there is an issue. As you can see here, the first tile, there's almost like 4 lines, and the second one is also having 2 lines. But normally in a mobile app you might see that maximum of 2 lines, and then you will see at the end like dot 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 or something like that. So let's try to basically, like, you know, fix those ones which are pretty common. So the way you do that is, again, you go into your list tile, which is here, list tile, and also we want to display some icons at the beginning or at the end. You can also do that. So let's try to do the first. Let's go with the leading and trailing icons. So leading, so let's try to display an icon. Say for example, icon of, again, icons dot, I mean, if you don't know the icons, I recommend you to go through the materials icons website here, and you can search for an icon that you like. For example, we want to display messages, so maybe like information, so, or maybe info. Is there an icon like info or something? There you go, chat info, or maybe message, because we are building a message app. So something like this, maybe that might do, or chat bubble or chat info. We are not doing chatting, but message, maybe this one. No, that's an attachment. So let's try to use one, any for example, maybe mail lock. Why not? Yeah, we'll try to use this one. So scroll down and you can see here mail underscore lock, copy code. So we can go back to our project and we can specify here control V, mail lock. You can even mouse over, you can see how it looks like. Okay, now if I just save this one, it is going to display icon at the front of all the because it is looping. This is a list, this is basically looping here. This is basically what we are saying, loop until all the indexes are done. So there you go, we got a kind of a icon there. Okay, now along with that, we would also like to show an icon at the end. That's basically, this is the leading and the next one is trailing. So trailing, so at the end we want to display a kind of an arrow, for example. So arrow icon, so icon of icons dot arrow underscore maybe forward, in forward iOS. It's okay, let's try this one. So if I'm going to save this, let me put it like this. So put it like this, so save it, and this time you can see there is a arrow, nice arrow there. And also we want to have maximum of 2 lines. We don't want to display more than 2 lines in the subtitle. That's the subtitle, there's too much line there. So you can just specify here in the subtitle, hey, maximum lines is only 2, and if it exceeds 2, in other words overflow, then show me the what do you call the if it is overflow, then ellipses. That's what we call it, text overflow dot eli, yeah, ellipses. That's basically what it's saying. Basically what we are trying to say here is, create me this list view, that's the list view, and inside the list view loop through all the items from this data file that we got until the length, whatever is the length, 4 items, 5 items, 6 items, and then from there we are creating a card. Inside the card we are basically, the reason of creating a card is to have this beautiful horizontal and vertical edges, like you see here. You see this kind of a card, beautiful card. You see at the end there's a kind of a nice beautiful edges. So that's the beauty of having card. And inside that one, create me a like list tiles, and for that front I want to display one icon, at the end I want to display another icon, I want to display my title, and I want to display my text subtitle. But I don't want 1 2 3 4 kind of lines. I want to have maximum of 2 lines, and if it overflows, just display dot 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 at the end. So let me try to save this code now. If I just save this code, and now you will see that it will basically, there you go, you got 2 lines, and if it exceeds, you will see that dot 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 at the end. Okay, so this is one way of showing. Actually this is a message, so that's not an email, but you can also show like an email. we have used the email icon. Maybe we can use another instead of mail lock, maybe like info, because it's an information. Let's try to save it, and there you go, that's the information. This is normally you will see in announcements and other things. But that's not the end. What we want to do is, when the user clicks on this, we want some action to happen, which is basically like a kind of a pop-up at the like snack bar, which we have covered in the previous video as well for static data loading. So let's try to do the same thing. So that is again as part of the list tile, so which is this one here, child list tile. In the list tile, just like we have title, subtitle, leading, trailing, so we are going to create here on, there you go, on focus or on tap, on long press, but we are going to use on tap. on tab we want to do something. Okay, now here when the user is basically clicks on that one, now even if you just save it right now, the difference you will see is once I mouse over, you see there the color is changing, that wherever I'm basically doing this one. Okay, so now I'm going to, when the mouse over, I'm going to call scaffold messenger dot of context show snack bar. That's basically what we want. We want to display the snack bar. So snack bar, which is this snack bar, and inside the snack bar we want to display the content and for how long we want to display. So content is basically going to be the text of say for example tap on, and you can display whatever the for example when the user clicks on here, we can display the complete subtitle. For example, as we discussed before as well, you can specify a $sign and then you can specify everything what is written here. The code can be written there. So we can say that, hey, show the item of subtitle, title or subtitle. I'm going to say subtitle maybe, because here it's only 2 lines are there. So let the user read the complete message when the user is clicking here. So that's basically what we are saying here when the user is clicking snack bar. And we can also say along with this in the snack bar, like we can say, let me put a comma here and again a comma, semicolon. There you go. So in the snack bar, along with the text, we can also say that along with the text we can say duration. Let us say duration of maybe in seconds of 2 seconds, for example. Okay, so basically what it means is, let me put this code all together. Let me format document. So format document. Oops, it has made, it's the previous was better, this was better, so I'll just actually I will not format. It is making the code even more complicated. So basically what we have done is, this is basically everything. So what we have done is, we have created a loop in the list view, and with this loop we'll basically go through all the items, and in that reference it will create that list tile. And in the list tile, in that loop, basically if there is no title, just display no title. For example, let me first save this one. Now just let's finish this snack bar thing, and then we will go there. So now observe what will happen. When I click here, it should display me a message with the complete subtitle. I click here, there you go, tapped on, hi Sarah, this is blah blah. 2 seconds is not enough. Let me make it as 5 seconds maybe. So I'm going to save it. So now, because there's only 2 lines here, I can click here, I can read the entire message. Hi Sarah, your electricity bill, blah blah blah. That's for 5 seconds. There you go, it's gone. I can click, for example, Amazon purchase, tapped on, thank you for purchasing with Amazon, your item has been shipped, blah blah blah, within 5 days. You see here, you don't even have to write tapped on, you can directly show the complete message. Like, I'm just, this is totally up to you. This is just to show that, let me remove this tapped on. For example, if I just save it, now when the user clicks, for example, heavy rains in so and so, avoid traveling, you ... I don't know what is the message. I click here, there you go, heavy rains in the eastern coast of Australia, especially in Queensland and New South Wales, avoid traveling unless needed or something. I can click again, there you go, unless urgent, there you go. So that's for 5 seconds. I hope the concept you have learned here is so important, especially in building so many different types of mobile applications there. And for example, I just wanted to show you how this no title or no subtitle works. Say, assume that in the message, for example, we don't have origin energy. Okay, I'm just going to delete this. It's an empty value there. Okay, I'm going to save this one now. Now if I go back to the main, and now I think I might have to restart, because once the external file data has been changed, I might have to reload. I think, let me restart. Let me see if that will work. No, I need to stop and I need to restart, because the data has been needs to be reloaded. Now what I have done is, here in the first record I have removed the title, and say for example in my third record I'm going to remove the subtitle. Okay, I'm going to delete the subtitle, for example. So I'm just make it empty. I'll make it empty just to show you that how nice it is when there are some empty data, because it's quite possible, because we are loading data from external file, that some errors might be there. So now if I try to load this piece of data, so, and by the way, there are a number of ways to run this code. You see, I can click here, I can run without debugging. The second way is I can click here and then it will do the same thing. And there is another way I just wanted to show you here. So in the terminal, you can basically write flutter, no, we don't need to do that, flutter run. There you go, flutter run. So basically what you can do is flutter run. This will also do the same thing. So there are three different ways. Now it is asking which of the output you want to use. One is for Windows, two is for Edge. I will say 2 because we have Edge, Microsoft Edge, and then it is trying to run the application. So this, it's always good to know how to run the application with so many different ways, because sometimes you might struggle with one different way of running the code. Then you can always use the terminal here. So let's see how the code is loaded. Now in our data, in the JSON file, we don't have, in some of the records we don't have title, in some of the records we don't have subtitle. So we should make sure that errors are also handled properly. So let's see, there you go, that's the data. So let us see if it will work. So this is another way, it's part of testing as well. To hot restart, there you go, it's okay, there you go. So okay, title is not there and we did not get a message, so that's not good. So we need to basically somehow display it. So if I click here, it is displaying the subtitle, that is good, but that error should have been handled. But this is another, this is one of the best practices to learn how to handle errors. So I hope that I leave it as an exercise. So that should have shown here title, there is no title, so no title should have come here, and in this case no subtitle should have come. Anyway, I hope this video was useful, so thank you very much.